So first things first, what cut have we got here? We do have a rump. Very well done. So in grass-fed or grain-fed? I reckon. Looks very grass-fed to me. What do you guys reckon? So if we were dealing with grain-fed meat, we'd have a very white fat. Why do we get yellow fat from grass-fed? Yeah. So in the one of the things in photosynthesis is beta carotene, and that gets concentrated in the fat. So we're going to hear from the lovely people from Gundamain Feedlot this afternoon. And so as we feed them, there's a bin over this side, Sam. Oh, thanks. I've got a great. He's actually a meat scientist, but he doubles as a geneticist as well. He's actually better at meat than genetics, believe it or not.
What breed is it, Sam?
What breed?
It's a bit tricky to tell.
Neogen, we need a few weeks and we'd work that out, right? So as we feed them grain, why does the fat go white when we feed them grain? Yeah, so the grain is not photosynthesizing, so there's no beta carotene in that. So that essentially, we mobilise beta carotene as we go through life. Imagine who eats lots of carrots. You'd have very yellow fat. But if we human meat's quite clean and tasty, apparently. Not lest I go there. So as they eat more and more fat, more and more grain, that beta carotene metabolizes out. So that's why short fed. So for our domestic market, we're on feed for roughly 65, 70 days into Woolies here in Tamworth, and that's where you get enough fat, nice and white fat. So for years, when my younger days, everyone said, well, why don't we educate the public about that grass-fed meat is better for you than grain-fed meat? And we said, the yellow fat was the thing that put them off, see, and they always used to get a lower price for grass-fed, etc. And then it's hard. Can we educate the consumers? A little bit, but not a lot. They'll like what they'll like, right? So how did we overcome the yellow fat thing in the market? Well, we did, we branded it as grass-fed, which has got positive connotations because 85% of our population live in the coastal fringe. They've got no idea what a cow looks like. And so we put it in a brand, said it's grass-fed and charged them more for it.
Well done.
Is that not a weird psychology? And it worked, right? So we didn't have to educate them about yellow fat then. We were going to do it. So what we're going to do today is we've got a bit of a costing up here on the screen for a rump. So how does anyone still like the big traditional rump steak, like where you get a big knife and you get a whole steak like that? I call them dinosaur steaks. I bought my old man a box of rumps a few months ago and he said, don't cut them all up like you want to cut them up. He said, cut me some decent steaks. And they were like 1.2 kilos. No person needs that amount of meat in one day. Not even a meat scientist. Righto. So what cuts have we got here? What are they going to all eat the same? If we cut them across here, are they all going to eat the same? Which is the best muscle in this piece of meat? Yeah, this one right up the top here, okay? So that's the rump cap. So what we're going to do today is seam these out. So hopefully, if you learn nothing else other than to just get a knife and a hunk of meat and cut it into its muscles, that's good. If we learn a little bit about meat science, we're also winning. So this muscle, what's the other part of this muscle that runs down the leg? Does anyone know? What is that joined to? What other piece of meat? So this is sitting right up here over your butt, and it actually runs right down your leg, that muscle. What does it turn into? That's your silver side. So the outside flat, for those of you in the meat game, or like your pump silver side. So this bit up here sits on top of the rump, and it's not connected to any bones, right? So it's really, really tender because it just sits up there doing bugger all work, like the halfback in a footy team. I see you do some work occasionally. It's okay. So it's muscle grain, and I'll just hack that off, and then we can. So I'm not a butcher, so don't watch for good skills on cutting up meat. But this has got plenty of fat, so I can find these seams beautifully. So this was what, 7.6 kilos, I think, did we? And you must have been wearing your LLS shirt when you went in to buy it, because they charge you government prices. So if you look at this here, you can see that the muscle fibres are running along this seam there, right? When we cut a steak, do we want to cut the steak with the muscle fibres or perpendicular? Perpendicular, okay. So that came off there. If I cut that along there in this traditional rump steak, am I cutting perpendicular or parallel? So you've told me that's the best bit of steak, and then when we cut a traditional rump steak, we totally bugger it by cutting with the muscle fibres, yeah? So that's why I always take them off. So the Brazilians will call this picanha or rump cap. Jeez, look, they didn't even trim it for you. So if you were buying this as a butcher, and it was that fat, what would we do with this? Would we cut it up like I'm going to now, or would we roast the whole thing? Because then I can sell all of this excess fat to the customer. In the meat game, or in the food production industry, what's our goal as food producers? Your goal, the processor's goal, the retailer's goal. What are we all trying to do? Yeah, we've got to draw as much money out of our consumers' pockets as we can. So we've talked about muscle. Why does muscle and even position within muscle affect the quality of the meat? And what does that change? Look at that, hunks of fat. The tenderness, why? What's the primary function? Why do we have muscle? It just so happens that they're tasty. But what do we have muscle for? Yeah, muscular energy, right? So we want it for movement. That's a bit for the Jack Russell or Mrs. Jones's poodle. But we'll put it in the waist. So now we've got these muscle fibres here. I could show you, that is a lot of fat. A lot. I'm going to cut them into steaks and then trim them nicely individually. So it's doing a lot of work. What does that change in the muscle though? Maybe a little bit of glycogen content, but the fibres, what about the fibres? Yeah, why? What's in there? Collagen, very good. Or connective tissue. Yeah, so collagen is one of the types of connective tissue. Why do we this muscle down here, so our ossobuco or our lamb shanks, why do we cook it forever? What happens to the collagen when we cook it forever? Yeah, it breaks down. Spot on. Do we need to cook this guy forever? Nah, absolutely not. I'm just going to place these in my beautiful hostess. Is
I was going to sleep. Sorry.
So we'll try and sell as much as we can of that rump, but we've got a beautiful fine textured marbling in there, so this will be actually pretty good. How can we tell if it's, so I know a bit about the muscle, what else do we know about this cow when you just buy a hunk of unmarketed piece of meat like that? What else can we tell about the animal? They can't tell anything. So it is an absolute lottery, other than you probably know where you bought it from and they might have told you a little bit about the age of the animal or some other bullshit before they charge you a mozza. But I've got no idea. Like, this could be a full Brahman. I don't know. It could be an 8-year-old cow. I don't know. It could be the worst steak you've ever tasted. But well, on the law of averages, 56% of animals in this country are now Angus or Angus infused. So, you'd be. There's a few little bits you get extras. See when you cut it up. There we go. Let's take those around. But they, they look pretty beautiful like that. And take those around. But that is my favourite steak of all. That one right there. We're not going to make any money sell out of this at all. Look at that fat already. By the by. All right. So as What's happened to our carcass weights over the last 30 years? Yeah, massively. Like a 300 kilo carcass used to be pretty big. At one out of the southern multi-breed, it's probably one of the biggest carcasses I've seen in my life, and I'd see a few carcasses. It was 625 kilos. Still had milk teeth. Dressed. Dressed. It took two of them to lift the top side off the carcass, because we're doing retail beef field on all of those cattle. It took two of them to lift the top side off it. All right, so we've taken the rump cap off. What's this other muscle that's right out here? And thanks, Sal, for chasing this. What's this little guy that's right out here? It's like the triangular bit. And it goes up over the knuckle, so it goes down this way. No. Yeah, well done. Tri-tip. So what we used to do when our cattle were smaller, so this bit used to get lopped straight in half, and you used to comment on so many centimetre tail, right? So a D rump with a 5 or 6 centimetre tail, because a rump might sell for, 10 or 12 bucks a kilo, and this bit here would go into trim. Yeah. Why now do we save the tri-tips? What helps us with the size of this cut is the carcasses, right? And the Americans have also taught us how to cook this piece of meat as well. So let's take it off, because it's beautiful as well.
So Peter, weighed cat.
Oh, good on you.
1.372 kilos. Yep.
Did you tear that foil? Jeez, you're buddy. Hey?
I was struggling.
It's almost
Got it done in the...
almost like you've measured a few traits in your life. So I just, people say, what do you actually do in life? And my family who live just down the road here, they find it difficult to understand what I do as well. But I just turn cows into numbers for the geneticists a lot of time, or sheep into numbers. So we measure traits. So how tough is the meat? How much marbling is in the meat? How much yield is in the carcasses? And then next week, I'm working with LLS, and we're going to Burke to start that whole process in goats. So if there's any goat farmers out there, Kid Plan might get some meat traits in another 5 or 6 years. But we're starting that journey. So they're only about 50 years behind cattle, but maybe they'll catch up, I don't know. Anyway, so we turn lots of animals into goats. So this one is pretty cool, the little tri-tip. So it's got a bit more connective tissue than the cap, so it makes a really good roast. So this whole thing actually, when we roast it, actually scores about 8 points higher than when we grill it. So why would when we roast it, why would the consumers tell us it's better than when we grill it? Same animal. Yeah, so even when we grill these steaks, some of that connective tissue that's in there is what we call solubilizers, right? So it turns into gelatin. But what happens first of all when we heat connective tissue? Yeah, it shrinks. It's like chucking plastic into the fire. What does it do? Like this, yeah? The connective tissue does exactly the same thing, but then it releases, some of it will solubilize and release over time. So if you want the best roast in your life, the rump, or this D rump, or this is now called a Ross biff. This is your number one cut in the body for roasting, other than your sirloins and your cube rolls and things like that. But the rump is actually about 8 points better as a roast than as a grill.
Is it because it also retains more moisture than roasted rather than on?
No, I think it's all about, because it does have a decent amount of connective tissue, so it's all about that. So grilling, it shrinks the connective tissue, melts some of it or solubilizes some of it, whereas roasting solubilizes a much larger percentage of that. Yep. So let's not be boring and roast this. Let's grill this today, because no, brisket's from here. So brisket's from where they lay down on their sternum. Yep, from the brisket. So funny. We call it a brisket in cows, we call it a breast in sheep, and we call it a sternum in a pig. Same thing. Anyway, so this little guy. So again, you get these weird kind of angles because of the way the way the fibres go. So we want to cut these steaks perpendicular to that fibre.
Lamb breast.
Lamb has a breast. Yeah, but
Oh, like chicken breast. Like chickens have. I never heard of them.
where do you reckon our lamb breasts go mostly?
Question.
What country? No, not quite. They used to, P&G was our largest market for breast and flaps.
Yeah.
So those breast bones, because there's mostly bone on it, the breast meat is not very plentiful. So nice steak, but this tri-tip, and hopefully that guy doesn't turn his barbecue off, because then we might be able to go and steal that. But you've got some nice marbling in this tri-tip as well. So it's a bit of a looser fibred cut and a really, really tasty one. And thanks for making our cattle more efficient over time, because now it's a decent size. We can get a decent little steak out of it. So there's only two rules of a meat scientist, really, is always test the best bits of the carcass. And the second rule is get more than you need. That's why I'm this big. No. There we go. Look at that. Sambo, can you take those around?
I can.
Do you reckon? And so it's certainly a different texture to the rump cap, but also really lovely. Now we've got, how many muscles are left here? There's actually about 6. But we'll turn it into 3. So we've got this little guy underneath here, right? What does this connect to? What does this come off when it's come off the body? What bone sits here? Yeah, your pelvis. Yep. So there's this little, what we call, what have we called it on the screen? I think rump flap, or I call it the pillow muscle as well. So it's a little guy that sits right in there along the H bone. So you can take that off, or if you're like cutting up steak and you're in a hurry, you can just lop these off now if you want to. But we'll, in the interest of time, we'll poke through it. So what are some of the other factors that drive eating quality? Yep, marbling. So Sam showed a nice graph there on IMF going up. So we have the pleasure of measuring a lot of the ASBP steers, so Angus side benchmarking steers, and all the long-fed Wagyus and lots of things. But last year was the first year I've ever seen a marble score 9 in a purebred Angus. And when I got here 8 years ago to UNE, the highest we were getting was a 6. And so we're getting, the top end is, using genomics, we're really able to find these guys. When you cross 2, we used to say, okay, the average will be, like, give them breed, the mid-parent EBV. But now with single step and this genomics, of course, when you cross 2 animals, from your siblings or your own progeny yourself, some are this big, some are this big, some are this, like that. We're all different, right? So you're on a normal distribution of the genotypes you get from your mum and dad. And sometimes you can get those animals that are way out on that top fringe in terms of the normal distribution curve, and they're your outliers. But if we don't measure them, when we're using mid-parent EBVs, we can never find those guys. So now we're finding them and breeding up from them. And so genomics is taking us a long way forward very, very fast, because we can find those outliers. What else is going to drive eating quality of this meat? So we've talked about muscle, which is our largest impact on eating quality across the body. So we've got about a 45, 50-point range between muscles in the same animal. So cut is our largest driver of eating quality. And then we're talking about, age is another good one, spot on. So we've got a few, so what does age impact? Tenderness, yep. So the amount of connective tissue that's in that. So we can get amazing steak using very different avenues. Now, you think this animal's old-ish or young, like 12 months old or 2-year-old? And I've got no idea. It could be an 8-year-old cow. Wouldn't have a clue. But it's got some marbling, right? Does a 12-month-old have much marbling? Not unless you've fed it well, very well. So we're saying here that this is probably an older animal and it's got some marbling. So what axis is going to get us to a high eating quality here? Is it the flavour axis or the tenderness axis? What's going to give us better? Why is this going to taste amazing? Maybe. Yeah, flavour, right? So the flavour is going to be good. In a young animal, we can still have amazing meat, but why do we get amazing meat in a young animal? Tenderness, really, really tender, because they haven't had time. So our retailers, if you're selling to Coles or Woolies, they don't want an old 24-month-old animal. They want something at that kind of 280 kilos at 14, 15 months of age. Yeah?
You can gun the meat to death.
Yeah. So, yep. Exactly. So in here, I'm just trying to look for this. So when you take that bit of fat off, not that you need to if you like that, but you can see this seam down here. So this is actually one muscle, the gluteus medius or your butt muscle, but these two parts eat very, very differently. Which one do you reckon does more work? The one here sitting on the edge or the one in the middle? The big one. Trick question. How you guys know? But this little one on the edge here is what we call the rump side. So if in let's say this was a young animal, this might be a 4-star piece of meat, and this would be a high 3-star. So maybe in the high 50s, but this one would be in the mid 60s or high 60s in terms of points. So this little bit here, you can keep it all as one and cut it as a steak, but what I would do is take that off. So first of all, we've got to get off this little pillow steak underneath here. What prices are we going to put on those things? What have we got? $24.99 on the rump flap. So that's what I'm taking off now. So the other thing I want to show is in our butchering game, you see bits of meat that's beautifully prepared on the butcher shop shelf, and you're like, wow, that rump centre or rump side is, $40. Surely not. But I want to show you about when you buy the whole thing wholesale, why trim level coming from the process is really important. Is this sufficient for us to fatten that animal that much and then cut it off? Okay. In terms of, we didn't really talk about muscle and bone today. In terms of energy to eat, what's the energy density on a wet tissue basis of fat compared to muscle? How many? That's on a dry matter basis. Yep. So and we don't lay down muscle on a dry matter basis. Muscle is 78, 80% water. So is it more efficient to lay down muscle or fat? Muscle, way more efficient. So this fat is about 12 or 13% water only. Yep. So how much more energy per kilo on a wet matter basis is this than muscle? It's about 6 times. So if you want to lay down a kilo of muscle, you might have to eat 6 kilos of dry matter of grain, let's say. If you want to lay down a kilo of fat, you've got to eat 36 kilos of grain. Yeah? So think about that in terms of the efficiency gain in over-fattening animals. Over-fattening is inefficient for you on farm because you've used more grass to give you not much weight. Now we're missing Ethan Mooney from this discussion, but I would say these days the grids are pretty wide. Do you know what your Woolies grid is? Does it go to 28 mils? So it's like these days it's like hitting a barn door. Why? Because there's not many cattle around or less. So if they put those parameters in a bit tighter, then you're going to sell them to someone else. So this is the little pillow steak. It's not very pretty. Yeah? So it attaches the rump to the pelvis. Yeah? But it doesn't do a lot of work. So there's a big bit of silver skin there on the outside. So we've got 3 layers of silver skin on the outside, which is the epimysium or the biggest, and then down into the muscle fibers, there's 2 other layers. So if we trim that up, which we will, and then we get a decent little steak, which we can use in, I think it says stir fry up there, but we're going to grill everything today because that's the way forward. If you've got good meat, you can always grill it. So let's get that silver skin off. But of course, that's going to increase our waste, but the chihuahua will be happy. Lucky you sharpened my knives before Simba.
Especially this one, mate.
This is my nice Japanese knife, right?
Yeah.
They rust, but they're good. Is that squeaking annoying anyone else?
Yeah.
It's like the bees are here. Get off. So this muscle, does anyone else like oyster blade steak? Yeah. So oyster blade steak is a classic, right? Because it's got that big sinew down the middle of it. It actually, if we take out that sinew and feed it to consumers, oyster blade steak actually scores. I might go into a bit of sausage trim, I reckon. We've got a sausage trim spot, haven't we? I reckon we do. Every butcher, we probably fit most of that into sausage too, yeah. Need a bit of rice flour to get that through. What's the percentage of meat that has to be in a commercial sausage? No. Give me a real number. It's got to be higher than that. 52. Yep. So the rest can be, that's meat content. The rest can be fat and filler, so rice flours, additives. So that's a little pillow steak. It's actually quite lovely. I'll just give you this stem because then we'll put it in the stir fry as well. That looks okay. I'll get a weight on that, or if you want to take that around. All right. So now we're back to this bit. So the gluteus medius muscle is the last one we've got left. And we're looking for this line here. So a sensible person would say, well, there's a line, let's just go for it, right? Because there's obviously is. But you actually have to flip it over. And there's this dirty big bit of sinew in here, and we go in next to that. So if you come down from the top, it can get a bit ugly. So we go in here and essentially find the edge of that sinew there and then run that along. So then we get this nice rump eye side off the side there. So you come to that pointy end, find that sinew, and then run that down in there. Maybe I can just turn that off. So if you can see, I'm trying to split down along that sinew that's on the middle there. So started on this big hunk up there, and then there's that, you're just running it down there. And then once you get past about the middle, you guess the rest. It's not gonna hassle you too much. Or sharpen your teeth, you'll be right. Any Queenslanders amongst us? They got sharp teeth anyway. Right, so we've got this nice little one. I could have left some of that fat on there, but I wanted to find that seam for you. So let's cut it up first of all. So it's high quality. So should we cut them thin at 20 mil or thick at 40 mil? Yeah, I agree. So we can cut beautiful chunks because that's a nice little meal. What muscle does that look like now? Yeah, I feel it. And so sometimes I'll wrap that in bacon and call it a rump medallion or a lump mignon or whatever you want to call it. I wasn't going to suggest that, but has been known to happen. But hey, we're all in the quest of taking as much money from the consumer, remember? Don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of that, because the more they get, the more they're happy to hand it down, yeah? Because if they've got none, they're not going to pass it on. If they've got a bunch, they can pass it on. All right.
Hey, what was this one, mate?
That was the top one, the rump flap.
Yep.
Here we go. Here's the thing. Take some of them around.
That's the eye rump side.
Yeah, that's the eye rump side. Yep.
Looks like an eye fillet. Chopped like an eye fillet. Could be disguised as an eye fillet.
But we've got an eye fillet, not quite an eye fillet price on it. We got distracted. We were talking about the oyster blade. How much? So the oyster blade eats about 1 or 2 points better in most animals than the cube roll. And we've got some beautiful teased cube rolls for lunch, actually. Hopefully they're cooking beautifully up there now. So the oyster blade's about 1 or 2 points better than a cube roll. What's the price of it typically? About half.
Yeah.
And for years it was like $10 a kilo. It was the meat scientist's best kept secret, but everyone's worked it out a bit now. But it might be like 24 and your cube roll's 48. So if you get a chance, get into the eye rounds, and woolies do a really nice job of that. The other cool thing about oyster blades is it comes off the back of your scapula. So on one side that moves your arm forward all the time is your chuck tender. Should be called the chuck not so tender. And then on the other side, it's not tender at all. And on the other side is your oyster blade. And because it's stretched across the scapula, it can't shorten during that post-mortem process. So the sarcomeres or the bits of muscle or the connective tissue is stretched. So it's always really, really tender as a piece of meat. But it's got that dirty, great sinew that runs along the middle of it, which puts people off. But if you can deal with that, it's really good meat. For a really good price. So this would make a nice little roast for one, but if you have to, you could share it. Only McGilchrist, that's right. So we can cook it, but of course we wanted to make dinosaur steaks, so let's continue doing that. So we have to find the muscle grain with that, and then we cut perpendicular to that. So this is the biggest but the lowest quality muscle in this whole rump. Okay, but you know, a lot of the time you'll get a pub steak will probably be a piece of roast beef, and it's good, like it's high 50s off a decent animal, so it's good every day. Not amazing, but you know, for a $15, $20, $25 rump steak at the pub, always pretty bit of a crowd pleaser. Certainly didn't see this when we were at college, did we, Sam?
No. Minute steaks.
Ah, the old top side. No marbling. Oh, look at that sausage.
No marbling that.
No marbling. So this one has done more work, see? So in terms of the other muscles that have done less work, has it got more or less fat? Yeah, less. That one's got less. The one that's done more work. Because why does an animal want to lay down marbling? Not because we want to eat them. They don't sit in the paddock and say, that person over there wants to eat me, I better lay down some marbling. They do not do that. Why do they lay down marbling in between their muscle fibres? Energy store, yep. Any marathon runners amongst us? Marathon runners? Used to be long distance runners? Oh, damn. Well, you'd have really good marbling, is what I was going to say. So when we're kids or when we're young, animals are young, we've got a lot of sprinting fibres, so we can go really fast, really quick. Before I tell more random stories, how long have we got? Where's our time up to?
2.289.
We need to add that to the.
That's the fat.
What time is it?
It is 12.
Ah, sweet, we're right on time. So I've got another 10.
He hasn't got a spot for fat, though.
So the muscles, as we get older, turn from white sprinting muscles to redder muscles. So our more long distance muscles. Yeah. And so that's why animals that are older or more mature are easier to lay down marbling in. When do we finish a Wagyu? Do we finish them at 12 months or wait till their teeth are just about to drop out of their head?
Yeah, exactly.
So they're really mature. So in the beef industry, we're actually quite lazy because we wait till they're at full maturity and then we fatten them. So then they lay a lot of marbling there. Anyone got sheep? No. Yep. So in the sheep game, we want marbling as well. But a lamb, are they mature by 12 months of age? Not even close. So we're trying to lay down marbling in an animal with lots of sprinting muscle fibres, which typically don't, very young. So laying down marbling in lamb is a big challenge because we're really trying to change the muscle physiology of those animals. Whereas in cattle, we often have this discussion. Now we're getting better and better with genetics. What we should be able to do is pull that time of exit back and have the same eating quality. So we get the same amount of marbling that we want, but on a younger animal, because if we fatten them and finish them right out to the end, they'd have way too much, or not. You can never have too much, but you can feed them too much though. So it's cost us a lot to get them there. So if we can feed them for 100 days and still get marble scores 4s and 5s, how great. So that's the role of genetics, is as we improve our genetics, we can pull back on some of those production inputs to try and get the same quality, but with much lower inputs. So that's the role we can play together. Proper. So it's a really good point. So if you're selling to a feedlot, you don't have to worry about maturity patterns as much. But if you're targeting, let's say, the JBS grids, Little Joes and off grass, then you want to exit those things at as a younger age as you can, but you want them to have marbling or starting to deposit fat in those cells. So maturity pattern will help you with that. So that really explosive 200 and 400 day growth. So because you get paid on weight still, but then you don't want those things, and now you can pick it. You don't want those animals that just keep going up, like between 600 day and then their mature cow weight's higher again, because that means that she just keeps growing until she's 3-year-old, right? So freezing Holsteins, absolutely. So they don't mature till they're 3 or 4-year-old. You don't want them when you're trying to lay down marbling, because you never get them finished. You want that animal that's hitting, 80% maturity when they're maybe 18 months of age. Yeah. So you want to not bring the frame score down, because you still want, well, you can, but that'll help with that maturity pattern. So get your growth to that 400 day EBV, and then make sure that the 600 and mature cow weight isn't just, aiming for the stars. Otherwise you just got a tall giraffe you're trying to fatten. Righto, what are we seeing here in terms of the numbers? So we charged a bit. Oh, geez. Okay. So we were charged we charged 7.4 kilos at $30 a kilo. So our whole cost of that thing was $222. Stir fry we sold at $25 a kilo. Those good rump centers and stuff we sold at $40 and $36. So and we're still here. So our total return was 177. So we haven't even broke even on the total return. So our gross profit's minus 45%. Our net profit after labour, bloody slow butcher over there, minus $120. Okay. So what could we do if I was a butcher shop, which I'm not because of my skills, but if I was a butcher shop, what could I do here?
Sell the whole rump.
Sell the whole rump to sell. Turn it back around, I reckon. Righto, we could do that. Yep.
Stitch it all back together.
Stitch it all. Too late. I know we're good, but we're not that good. Righto, what else can we do if we're not making...
Put the prices up with visual cut.
Yep, we could do that. That's one lever we can pull. So we can push that until our customers say, no way, I'm buying that. It's too much. Okay? So that's one lever we can pull. What else have we got to do?
Put more waste into the
sausage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, let's try that. Let's bulk up our sausage a bit. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's a good strategy. We'll put a bit more. We'll get some bull meat because it's cheap to go with that. Make good sausages. Here we go. We got some changed weights.
That's the tricky part.
No, it's not going to hurt us. We'll put the thing into it as well. Our sausage is now 1.108.
What's our waste?
Reevaluate it.
And the waste.
Can we value add it? We could value add it. So you've got
Just reweigh what.
income and expenses. So we've already dealt with income. We can charge more for our meat.
Or the dropping button.
Oh, yeah.
What else can we do? If we've maximised our income, what else can we do?
No, 1.690.
Oh, sorry.
Waste. Great question. Great question. So let's deal with that for a second. So this used to all go to rendering, right? So and tallow was maybe that's where I need Ethan, maybe 600-800 euro. Help us out. But tallow might have been back in the day under $1,000. What are we running at tallow at the moment? 1,800, $2,000. Yeah. So what do they use tallow for these days?
So, lubricant.
That's historic. They still use it for some of that.
Healthcare.
Movement going on about seed oils versus tallow.
Yep.
And I hear one of the restaurant chains in the States just announced they're now cooking it exclusively in tallow. Is that affecting the price?
On the fringes. There's something else that's really driving tallow price. No. What did you say? No. What's that?
Plane.
What's it running on? Biofuel. Yeah, so a lot of these companies have made pledges to reduce environmental footprint, so they have to use biodiesel. One of the immediate sources is oil seeds, but also tallow to make biodiesel. So biodiesel industry has put this up a lot. With a China license, like we can also sell that, because to you and I, that doesn't look like much meat and not worth the time, and especially not at that labour price. We're not going to get that out. But you can sell, this is just called body fat. So tons and tons of that are now sold to China. So going to rendering or making tallow, it might make 35 cents a kilo. Into China, it might be at $1 a kilo. So big increase in income. Like this plant here, the sheep plant, they built a second rendering plant before China really kicked off, and now both of them sit there almost idle. All the bones, all the fat, everything gets frozen and exported. So, and a China license is worth about 30 or 40 bucks a lamb. So big, because of all that bone market. Anyway, the other thing we can do to make some money is get charged, like get a new supplier. Sorry, Sal, you got the sack. So let's put that wholesale price down to somewhere that we can make a little bit of profit. What do we got to get to? So there's not going to be much profit in this thing because it's so fat. No.
No, you're going to be more at
The
15.
original quote was $16.
Mix and chamois that through the boning room to get the right output. So yeah, so we're making some gross profit, but our net profit is going down. So if we bone out 50 of those a week, we're still losing too much money. So yeah, that's a little exercise in why we sell a cow for, let's say, $8 a kilo, and then some of that meat, we've just used this as a small demo, why some of that meat has to be at 45, 50 bucks on the shelf, because you can't eat the bone, you can't eat the fat. We've got a whole heap of waste. And yield is fundamentally undervalued by our industry. And that's largely because we haven't had the ability to measure it very well forever. And we still use carcass weight and P8 fat, which explains about 20% of the variation in carcass yield. So you may as well not even bother. But hopefully we get some new technologies and we start thinking about the value of, because this is inefficient to produce on farm, but also for our processors inefficient, and our butchers inefficient to buy as well. So we've got to get the right amount of fat on, not over fatten it. Of course, in production systems, that's hard because we have lots of cattle coming in and we want them to go out as mobs. But
So would that be in spec then, Pete? Like if you think of you're trying to meet a grid or something like that, could you just make the grid tighter?
Hard to know. So if I was buying that, let's say I was buying commercially from Tees or even Woolies that kill here through Tees, they would have a spec on their rumps of 8 mil, and then that goes into Hilton Foods in Brisbane, and that all gets chopped up with no further trimming because they don't have butchers at those further trimming places, okay? So the spec coming out of the processor has to be there. The arrangement between how fat the animal was and what price they got is between the livestock buyer and the producer. And we're out to 28 mil now, so they're saying your supply of cattle is more valuable to me than the over fat ones because supply is tight. 23 mil, okay. So it's tightened a little bit. It's come back 5 or 6 or 7 to 23. 7 mil to 23 mil?
I remember it historically being 30 and then 28. Now it's
Yeah, so it's coming back in.
But it also depends on the processor too, Pete, because you've got Throsby's who are quite happy to trade on 0 to 50. And then you've got Wingham who'll have a really skinny grid. Then they'll have a medium grid, then have another one.
Yep.
Then they have their ultra fat. Guess who buys my ultra fat cows?
Throsby.
Wingham.
Oh, Wingham. Yeah. So and it's about what they do with that. So all of these processors have got different markets and different end spots. And if they're buying really lean product out of the north or these days the south, then they've got some overfats from you. In it goes together and you've got an 80 CL, so 80% fat. So you can mix and chamois that through the boning room to get the right output. So it's really horses for courses on what those grids are. But as numbers of cattle increase, or supply increases, those grids will typically get tighter. So, yeah.